Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Nextech AR's channel. We're sitting here once again with Evan and special guest Baran, the founder, CEO, and global thought leader from ARway. First off, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great.
Doing great.
Good. So, Evan, let's start this off by telling people again about the metaverse.
Sure. So the metaverse is super exciting. A lot of people talk about it. Not that many people really understand it because it is a new word. But the idea is to sort of create a next level internet overlaid on top of our physical world. So I liken it to almost living inside of a computer. I know that sounds very sci-fi-ish, but it's also, I mean, you could think of it as instead of watching a movie, you're walking inside the movie and it's playing all around you. So it's your physical world, but it's augmented with 3D interactive experiences that are always on. That's the key. It's ever present. It doesn't turn off. It's just the always on metaverse. And, you know, it's going to become a big part of the fabric of our lives as we move forward. Just like the internet today, if you rewind 25 years ago, when the internet was just getting started, and it's only been 25 years, we take it all for granted. The internet is, part of the fabric of our lives. Everything we do essentially revolves around, ordering things on Amazon. Even when you watch a Netflix movie, ultimately, it's live streaming, right? So that streaming piece is happening through Wi-Fi. Ultimately, all these technologies that we take for granted are going to be part of the metaverse, and we're going to take the metaverse for granted in a few years. And in my mind, the big opportunity for investors is to be able to get into a pure play metaverse company. And Nextech is really the only pure play metaverse investment opportunity. If you want to invest in the metaverse, the other option is you could buy Facebook, which is, the social media giant that everybody knows has $1 trillion market cap compared to our, 150, 200 million. Facebook is definitely going into the metaverse, and we'll just talk about that for a second, and then we're going to get into our mini metaverse. What were you going to say?
And actually, Evan, I'd love to add on to what you were saying there. So I, again, really believe that with the metaverse, it's going to be this entire economy of its own. And so, what you were talking about with Facebook and Amazon, those are the Web 2.0 businesses, right? And so we're going to see that those guys reflect those original core businesses. So e-commerce and these social networks reflect all of that onto this new generation and this new era of, wearable cameras and new devices. And that's going to be the metaverse. And so I think one way to kind of see it is, I've actually in my background got this layers of how that could come together. And so we have at this base layer, we have, the world, our physical world. And then you have all these different, social layers, e-commerce layers. And just like Evan was saying, it is going to be like that movie. And so, we're going to see this augmented reality metaverse. But beyond that, there's the virtual reality metaverses. So, Epic Games gets called a metaverse company because, they have Fortnite. And with Fortnite, you can have these virtual events. You have, millions and millions of players watching and the live, the same experience at the same time. And so if we could do that on the same scale, but in real life on our physical world, that's even more impressive. So I think, with the metaverse, it's like we're fully focused on that. And we were just about to jump into talking about the mini metaverses, right? And our strategy at Nextech for that.
Exactly. Thank you, Baran. The mini metaverse is what we're going after as a business. In the short run, you can't really map the entire world. It's just too big an undertaking. Yeah. So we're going to create these mini maps, mini metaverses. We see our 3D AR ad network as a big revenue driver. We see a subscription model where people pay for using our technology and populating these mini metaverses with content. And, it's just important, I think, that everybody that's watching this understand that improvements in mobile device processors, improvements in gaming systems, improvements in the internet infrastructure, virtual reality headsets, as Baran was mentioning, and even cryptocurrency, all of these pieces are part of the ecosystem. They're part of the building blocks for creating the metaverse and ultimately ensuring consumer adoption. It's not like happening in a vacuum. And it's not happening just at Nextech. Microsoft is also going into the metaverse in a big way. They've announced that they're building an enterprise metaverse. Epic Games announced that they just raised $1 billion in April to support their metaverse ambitions, just like Baran was speaking to with Fortnite. And then you have Unity, and then you have an exchange traded fund that is literally going to be investing in what else? The metaverse. So there's this enormous amount of excitement. There's capital that's starting to flow in a big way into the metaverse. Big tech is into the metaverse, and so is Nextech. Nextech AR Solutions is creating a whole solution portfolio of solutions for people that want to have these mini metaverses. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Baran so he can walk you through kind of his vision that he's been building over the last couple of years. Take it away, Baran.
Yeah. Okay, great. So just to get into it, with ARway, we originally started out a couple of years back, and we had that goal in mind of building this metaverse, but we don't really know what we were building back then was the metaverse. And so what we initially wanted to focus on was, can we support the creators of this metaverse? So at this point, especially augmented reality itself wasn't at the level where a business such as like a shopping mall would be keen on just, spatially mapping out their entire venue and creating almost like an AR experience pinned around everywhere. They don't quite understand it. And so, our strategy changed quite a bit when we decided to focus exactly on developers, because we knew developers were the ones who would drive the innovation. And, just like companies like Unity were doing, create these AR experiences and push and drive the innovation in the market. And so that was our go-to-market, to help developers create something for them so that we could focus on going essentially back to the businesses. And so that's where we started when we first launched our software development kit. So we had 100 studios. And what we found is with these studios, they had a reach into some of the top brands in travel, marketing, and enterprise. With the studios we've worked with, at that time, we really didn't know that they were essentially building these mini metaverses. We figured, okay, here's a developer toolkit. You guys want to create AR experiences. We'll help you build those out. And so what we realized is, these guys, keeps referring to as guys, these studios ended up mapping out, the client's environment. So that, we had maps created in airports, shopping malls, hospitals, offices, and for all sorts of different use cases. So we found that indoor navigation in AR was quite a big use case. And then we found that, with marketing, that was especially big for some of these different companies where they wanted to find new ways to push eyeballs onto, their brands. And so our studios were just experimenting with toolkits like ours to really push the edge on what augmented reality could do. And at that time, there wasn't much you could really do with the standard toolkits that Apple and Google provided. And so we took it a step further, where you could add persistence, where you could actually anchor these experiences and make them stay there in geolocation forever. And so that was quite powerful.
It is. And I think it's important to note that there's demand in the market, that people want this solution, that, we're actually feeding a demand that's existing in the marketplace by studios and agencies and brands. So
just to dive a little deeper into, one of our more recent clients. So we had started on a project with the City of London, where it was exactly focused on producing these live events in AR. So it was pinned around some of these key monuments around London. And yeah, the point was they used our software kit, used our platform, created the content, and using our mapping app, they created the maps and were able to pin it. And so now, once you have gone through those steps, you can share that app and have anyone around London go there, point their phone, and view the same AR experience and objects and visual features as yourself.
Amazing.
So that was quite powerful. Yeah. And it was actually a 5G initiative that we were working with.
With British Telecom, is that the?
Yeah, with BT.
Yeah.
And so just to dive a little more deeper into that project, so there were a few different maps that were created. So you can see the visuals here. And it had a very interesting theme since we worked with Guildhall, the School of Music. So they had this focus on air and earth. You had this, and it was called Project Harmony. So these were different maps that were created, and really from a geolocation, well, from a satellite or from an aerial view, how it looked was, we had this like square block, and this is where the maps were all connected together. And on the left, you can see how the point cloud. So this is what the computer understands. So when you point your phone, and you're thinking, okay, how does it collect information or spatial data? Now it collects these tiny point clouds, and that's how it processes it. And so with these point clouds, they come together, and it's millions of point clouds, and those feature points come together to create a map and an understanding for the device to say, okay, that's where I am. Just like humans understand where they are through memory and visual identifiers. So it was the same thing with point cloud and mapping. And on the right, you can see how the experience would look in AR. So it's actually an animation. We don't have the video just yet, since it's still just being demoed now. But yeah, the user would walk there in a couple seconds, find the experience, and localize their position.
Amazing. Just makes for a much more immersive experience as you're walking around that garden.
Exactly. And so that's how the product was broken up into. We wanted to make this whole design process and deployment process of AR experiences as simple as possible, especially for developers. So it started from mapping. We had the app ready. Anyone could go to a venue, a place, any environment, scan that environment, add the content in with their preferred editor. So we had a Unity integration, so a Unity SDK, or they could also just use our web studio. So just create all the content and add it in through a web dashboard. And then once that's sorted, you basically deploy the app. So we have the Unity SDK, you add your credentials in, do all the rest of it. And you can now even integrate it into a customer's app directly. So you don't even need to create a new app. This could just be a feature, like a tap on, just like, what Snap can't do, right? Where we could actually put this into, let's say, a airports app or like a shopping mall app.
So that app's on the App Store. People can download that app now.
Yeah. So even with the SDK, anyone can now go onto our platform, register to use the SDK, and download the maps. Download the spatial mapping app right now. We also have like a couple different demo apps people could try out, so they could create AR maps in their own home. We even built a couple fun games in AR where you could create a zombie game. But we'll get into that a little later. But really, the core tech behind all of this that makes it work is we have that mapping app, the mapping algorithm, the web studio where content's created, and the goal there was a no-code studio, so anyone could use it. And then the edge cloud localization, where we can make this work as fast as possible, where it only takes a second or two to get your positioning, and that's a centimetric positioning. It's not GPS. And so with that in mind, we could push this not only to mobile apps, but even make it compatible on web AR, or push this to AR glasses, and even with our algorithm being designed, specifically for RGB cameras, this could potentially even work on a drone. So imagine drones mapping out entire malls to save time, right? Yeah, and so just to go over how this kind of looks in action, on the right side, you can see how in just a couple seconds, you're able to get an anchor and find your positioning. And this was actually a project we did with Westfield that kind of just showcases how that content and that experience was just easily created, because a lot of people believe that you have to spend, thousands of dollars on these really expensive mapping cameras or like 360 video cameras. But in reality, it's really simple. And so we're leveraging the fact that millions of these devices have the capacity to create these maps. So we're
Maybe
not trying
billions,
to.
maybe even billions.
Oh, sorry, my mistake. Billions, right? So Apple's AR kit and then Google's AR core made this possible in 2017 and 18. So I can just skip a little forward, but you can see how on the ground there's these green dots. Those are the point clouds being created. And just in less than 2 minutes, I'm able to create the map, upload it, give it a name. And once that's completed, just submit it, uploads the map to our server.
You don't need to be a coder or programmer, no specialized skills. What you're really saying, Baran, if I'm reading between the lines, is that this is a creator tool. Just like people create YouTube videos, you could create, or TikTok, you could create a spatial 3D map. You could create a mini metaverses. So it's really a creator platform, again, that people can use, create mini metaverses and drop in their AR assets.
Evan, earlier you had mentioned how the parallels between this and the early internet, but I think what's interesting is how quickly accessible this is becoming to your average person that isn't someone who's been coding all their life now.
I do think, though, that it's important that, when you think about things that go viral, things that really grow exponentially, you could look at Instagram, where everybody was creating their own content, right, and sharing it. You could look at Facebook, where everybody was signing up and creating their own kind of pages. If you look at the ability to create your own spatial map, that is super exciting. I think when you think about the possibilities, ultimately the map isn't the thing, though, right? Like, a map is cool, but what is it when there's nothing in the map? Like Baran had wayfinding dropped in, and he had the ad, the Westfield ad, and then he had the spaceship, right? That's what makes that map valuable. And I think it's important to note that at Nextech, we bring the full tech stack, where it's, you could create your map. Guess what else we could do? Populate it with augmented reality experiences. So it's the end-to-end solution where we could provide you with the AR assets. HoloX creates human holograms on demand. That's the creator platform that we give you with ARway. And then 3D AI, another creator platform for creating products, right? If you're selling a couch or what have you. And so those things combined is what make this super, super exciting and valuable.
Yeah, and just a point on that, Evan, I definitely agree with the fact that, with mapping, it's come to a stage where it's so simple where anyone could do it. And the more interesting part is it could be done in the background of an app. So, 30 million people annually visit Westfield. And so I chose that location specifically because I want to kind of demonstrate the fact that, if we wanted to really map out every inch of Westfield, it wouldn't just be by going there myself and doing it, but actually in the background of an app, a user app that's deployed there, it would be continuously collecting spatial maps. So
Wow.
the mapping would continuously be happening and improving the map over time. So it's a dynamically updated map that just is always live and updated. So any changes to the building layout or floor will just be continuously taken in. And it'd almost be like this crowdsourced approach.
How does that happen, Baran? I'm not clear on that. So does that mean if I take my phone out to take a picture of, let's say, a product, or my son or daughter or girlfriend, that the phone is actually continuing to map the environment even though I don't know it? I'm not clear on how that works.
Oh, yeah, just to clear that up. So again, it wouldn't be happening forever in the background of an app. It would be more like this, you'd be playing, let's say, an AR game, and in the background, that would just continuously be scanning that environment to help improve the map itself. So
I
the
see.
next time you play, it's more improved, or
I
it's
got it.
updated.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, and just like a sort of example of the scale this kind of works at, it's not just indoors or smaller environments, but this really works up to a distance of 30 meters. So we've taken maps and really
How
stress
many
tested.
feet? How many feet is that for people in the U.S.?
Oh, my conversion isn't that great. I'm not too sure. Maybe someone could calculate that. But yeah, this is how we can kind of capture, like, even what Google does, which is on a street view level. Like if we wanted to capture the outdoors and street levels, we could capture the.
Yeah, it's like 1 to 3.2. So figure 30 meters is like 100 feet.
Yeah, 98.4. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
And so these are the kind of experiences we can end up creating, right? So if you want to put a giant, portal, I mean, maybe for an advertiser, like some sort of brand campaign. And what's even more impressive here is with the occlusion. So you can see how that spaceship is almost there, right? So it goes behind the building, and now it pans around, and comes all the way back around. Give it a couple seconds, and it just shows right there. And you can't tell me that could be done with CGI, right? Like this is all real time processing. So that's what's more exciting about AR and what's possible now. And just to show maybe another example of this in action.
Oh yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
So this is like a kind of a K-pop, and behind her is an augmented reality stage that's living in the point cloud. In this, she created essentially a mini metaverse. Is that right, Baran?
Yeah, exactly. So the concept here was we were working with a client on how they could essentially create these music videos and use AR to not have to do any post-production editing. So these musicians, and they have a whole platform of loads of different artists, could just come on here, have all these visual effects in the background, and using our SDK, it would anchor that in, add the occlusion, so it's more realistic of an experience, and
Right.
yeah, just make it work.
And they made those videos, right? Like, I mean, those the AR piece of it is what they made, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is just being powered by us. I mean, the content is all theirs. The whole setup is theirs.
Right.
And we're just doing the background processing of making sure it's stable, making sure that there's a whole different occlusion here, so it looks like she's actually got a stage behind her.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it actually came out really well. To be honest, that it was anchored also to the parking lot.
Yeah, and just the point on that, actually. So when it comes to this question of how do you localize, I'd love to address that with actually how some of our clients have done it. So one of the studios we worked with, Yellow Design, designed this experience where they took the Titanic and brought it back to life in AR. And so they, in Belfast, that's where the Titanic was originally created. They created a one-to-one, same scale Titanic in AR, and had this experience where anyone could go there to the slipways at Belfast and view it. So this was done with the public signage. So if you saw at the very beginning, they had this signage. So this is where they activate the experience. So simply someone scans it, points their phone at it, and now they can visualize the Titanic. And they even get close into the Titanic, like they can view the decks.
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's incredible, Baran. I think it's critical for everybody to understand that this works inside the Titanic's app, right? So it's an SDK, which means, you go to the Titanic Museum, the Titanic experience, you download their app, and then this experience, which is powered by ARway, is visible through their app. So if you think of all the brands and all the apps that are out there, this app integrates with all the other apps. And that's, a easy way for this to start to scale where there's no friction, right? It's not like you have to download the ARway app. No, you're downloading the same app that you've already downloaded, and getting this incredible experience.
Exactly. And that's what we wanted to really make sure, which is, we just stay in the back end. We make the creators happy so that they could continue innovating and continuing to create these kind of content pieces and experiences. So this is just another example, but what's more exciting to me is the fact that beyond an app, could we take this to web AR, or could we take this to AR glasses? And so that's really where we're heading, I think, with the evolution of spatial computing, and we're ready for it, right? So we're a software, it's an SDK, and we're ready for it. We support it. The algorithm, still is made and designed to work on all devices.
Yeah.
So just going back to the deck, what we wanted to really do with Nextech was to get into, adding these core elements into their platform. And, I think over the next coming, weeks, we'll definitely have a lot more to share. But yeah, that's kind of the plan right now. And so just to also go over a little bit more on the kind of growth we've had, we haven't had any paid marketing, and a lot of the signups and developers we've had at work just from inbound. We even have our own community of developers, around 2,000 now, that we work with. And so, this is kind of how we got to the stage where we're at, where we kind of created our own ecosystem of these creators and developers who don't want to rely on what Google and Facebook or Niantic give them as toolkits. They want to work on a toolkit that allows them to create their own AR cloud or their own mini metaverse. And so with the different maps that we've actually created, it's surprising to find that actually we've had 60 different countries where maps were created across the world. One of the first projects we had was all the way in Taiwan, and the largest shopping mall in Taiwan, Dream Mall, where we mapped all 7 floors. And we had projects ranging from Qatar to of course the US and all across Europe and Germany. So yeah, it's impressive to see that just very quickly we put something out there and had all this reach, and that the maps that were created were from anything from a bedroom scale to like a whole office floor or a whole shopping mall.
While this is impressive, it really is just a signal to the market of how much demand there is. It's not even close.
And we couldn't even support it. I mean,
yeah.
there were projects and studios who were asking us to help them and work with them to support it, where we just didn't have enough resources to do so. We wanted to focus on creating a SaaS platform where we didn't have to give a lot of support. And so that's always been the vision. But again, we haven't been able to scale it to that level. But I think now with Nextech, like that's what we're, again, we won't say too much now, but we're working on that.
Yeah, the tricky part, of course, is when you're a startup, having the resources or not having the resources to support a much bigger rollout. And so, we're now gearing up for that bigger rollout where we're going to open this up to the world.
Yeah, and this was just with a pre-seed raise. I mean, we had just around $250,000, and we're able to just make all of this work. So if we had the capacity and the kind of machine at Nextech to do a real rollout, I think we'd be able to scale this way further. I mean, we barely even touched the surface of the kind of demand we've seen.
Yeah, this is really just showing like proof of concept more than anything else.
Yeah, and that was reflected in our revenue model. We want to go over scaling this to a point where it was based on usage. So the more maps were created, the more location requests that were made, we would charge on those basis points. And what's more interesting is where we kind of left off with enterprise. We had all these developers and creators, of course, from marketing and travel and all these different use cases, but where we really wanted to kind of try and get money from, well, sounds wrong, but like where the money's at is in enterprise, of course. And so we actually partnered with this one platform, Spectre, where they were focusing on mechanics and especially on maybe I can show some visuals, especially on the enterprise market, where they were using the HoloLens to replace their laser-based systems. So in factories where they're doing a lot of maintenance works, and also in defense, they usually use laser-based systems for like being able to build and giving instructions, etc. But with the HoloLens now, that's kind of replaced all of that. And so our technology helped the HoloLens to better anchor those experiences there. So, well, not experiences, but like the overlays, right? So that made it possible for this to work. So it requires like a sort of centimetric accuracy. And so with our spatial mapping and with our localization, we were making sure that like it stayed there, and it solved a $1 billion problem for them, because these laser systems are really, really expensive. I mean, they just want to replace them. It's much cheaper to just give everyone a HoloLens than to deploy all these different infrastructure they have.
Yeah, and so the ARway kit works in the HoloLens. Is that the message? Yeah.
Yeah, so we had integrated with Microsoft earlier this year, and yeah, we had the chance to make it work with the HoloLens and explore that use case. But again, as a startup, we had a lot of there were projects that we wanted to do, such as a different AR glasses company reached out to us that wants to partner up, that we just didn't have the capacity to actually do. And so just to touch on like the demo I showed earlier on. So this was actually with Encore. So Encore is one of the hotter AR startups in LA, where they're focusing on this platform for musicians and using AR to really bring their content piece to life. So they're using our SDK right now. And just to touch on I think where the whole market's at. So again, I recently had a panel with folks from Niantic and Google, and the discussion was all around like how their companies are positioning in this AR location and metaverse space compared to us, which is like a startup, right? So we're like the kids on the block, and they're these massive Goliaths. And so it was really interesting to see that our tech had just picked up a lot more interest from the audience than what they were doing, because they have to move quite slowly, right? So they have to make sure they're designing it very carefully, and R&D is perfect, whereas we can actually push the barrier on a lot of things and move faster. So yeah, this is basically how that point cloud map works. And this is what it looks like when the content's actually added in. So this is from the Guildhall project I was mentioning about. So you can see there's a little animation happening right now, and it's got all these different bits and pieces that fly around. So what this is, I know it's a little unclear from like the angle, but this is actually one of the gardens where we created this map. And so simply anyone who enters in there with the app, they could point their phone in any direction where the point cloud is scattered and get a location positioning. And so with that, they can view that AR content the same as anyone else. And it's almost like a shared experience where it's anchored in. So, you can see from like all the different angles how that kind of comes together. So there's these different layers and different illusions almost for creating the AR content. But the map stays the same. And this is in Unity specifically, where the animations have been added. But also on our web studio, the point cloud looks very different. So I'll just show an example of like a smaller map that could be created. So this is, again, just a scattered point cloud of a fountain, for example. And you can notice in this point cloud, it doesn't have the visual features. So in the Guildhall projects, you can see the details. So I can just quickly also show how the scanning difference is. So you can see how using especially the newer devices with LiDAR capabilities, we're able to collect much more dense point clouds. And so, this gives it way more detail. So if we wanted to even create like a like 1 to 2 centimeter accurate experience where it's literally pinned on a tabletop or somewhere else, with this kind of LiDAR mapping, we can do so. But on a larger scale, any kind of device is capable of using the app. So, we support even the cheapest Android devices to, an iPhone 7, for example.
All right. That was amazing, Baran. That was super, super interesting. I'm sure all of our investors, they've never seen a point cloud before. They've never seen millions of points in essentially, space and time that define this metaverse. And that's really what this is that we're capturing space and time. And we're just capturing it in this 3D scanning technology, and then we're dropping in augmented reality experiences, which really enhance our experience with the world. It's really this, this overlaid internet, this interactive future that is here today. And that's the exciting part, is that we're bringing this to market now. It's in market. You just saw a whole bunch of use cases. I think my favorite one was the girl dancing in the parking lot, because the idea that you can take a parking lot and turn it into a stage and it looks amazing, and do that relatively effortlessly. I mean, that's the power of technology, right? And so super excited to be able to present this today, Baran and Michael. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Baran, come back anytime you want. If anyone has any questions at all about anything you saw or any other potential applications, let us know and we'll happily answer it for you or dive into it on a video. But for now, everybody, have a wonderful day.
Perfect.